Hello, welcome to this DCS F-16C tutorial. In this video, we will cover HARMS and also jettisoning stores. So to begin with, I'll do my standard startup. And you can put HARMS on pylons 7, 6, 4, and 3. So I'll go ahead and throw some HARMS on there. To demonstrate jettisoning, I won't put a jammer on my 5, I'll put a fuel tank, but you generally want your jammer there. And on 5 left, we're going to put the HTS harm targeting system pod.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
I'm starting at startup for this video rather than out on the taxiway to demonstrate how when you put air-to-ground stores on your plane, the CCIP that you're used to seeing down in the bottom left might be a little bit different because it depends on what stores you have on your aircraft.
Rearming complete.
Additionally, because we now have pods on our aircraft, we want to make sure we come down to this panel and flip these hardpoint switches up to the on position. This allows the pods to have power. This is essentially powering the wings or the cheeks of the aircraft where the pods are. All right, INS align. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I can continue with startup. So here we see our base nav. When we go into air to ground, you'll see it now says HARM instead of CCIP because we have HARMS, which are considered an air-to-ground munition on the aircraft. So same as before, just come down, throw a weapon on. Standard startup from here. I don't have a jammer, but I'm going to set up this panel anyway. If you ever back out of your INS align page, you can get back into it by pressing list. And then the 6 option here that says INS. And now I can monitor my align again. So we're just waiting for that to finish up, and I can go ahead and take off. All right, INS is aligned. To nav, and I'll set a home plate marker, just because. So I'll get back into air to ground, shown by not having the dogfight or MRM right here. Back out to my main menu for the DED, which is this display up here. Mark. TMS up twice. And I'll have my mark point on 26. And I'll start taxiing out. So to bring up the displays to utilize our HARMS, which are anti-radiation seeking missiles, we can move to the SMS page on the right display, either by clicking the button or by using our display management switch right to scroll to it. And on the left, I'm going to scroll to the HAD page, which is utilizing the harm targeting pod we have on our aircraft. So HAD. I'll cover more on this as we're in the air and flying over towards some SAMs. If you're using HARMS, this is basically what you want to see. Your HAD page on the left and your stores page on the right. If you need to, you can press DMS right to see your situational awareness page, and then cycle back with your DMS right to get over to your SMS. We can see that our HAD page is not sensor of interest, not SOI. In order to make it our sensor of interest, to allow us to input commands to the page, we will press DMS aft. And now we can see this box around the page showing that it is our sensor of interest. If I put a valid display that can be a sensor of interest on the right, in this case the HSD, I can press DMS down to put the box around here. And now we see the left is not sensor of interest. So I'll demonstrate that again. DMS aft. We have the outline showing it as the sensor of interest. No outline here, DMS aft. This now has the outline around it, and back again. So our HAD is our sensor of interest. You can use the HARMS without your harm targeting system pod. It's just a little bit more cumbersome. I prefer to always use a harm targeting system in the HAD page if I'm utilizing a harm. Just makes life a bit easier. On our SMS page, we can see that we have 4 AG88s. Those are our 4 harms. And below it, we see power off. That is because even though the harms are on our aircraft, they are not powered on. So we will not be able to utilize them. So we'll just go ahead and click power, so it's now on. And we can utilize our harms. Down here, it shows the pylons our harms are on, 3, 4, 6, and 7. And that's pretty much all we need on this page, so I'm going to bring this over to the weapon page. Now that our harms are powered on, we have access to the weapon page. I'll go back and turn it off, and weapon page is off. Turn them on, and we have access to the weapon page. So if you are not using a harm targeting system and the HAD, we could just fire the harms utilizing the weapon page. For this example, I'm going to show the uses of both. You can fire with either one, you just have to make sure it is SOI. So I have the outline here, DMS aft. Now the SOI is over here. This is no longer SOI. All right, let's get in the air. I'll DMS right to bring up my HSD. I can see the SAM fields out over there, so that's what I'm going to fly to. When you utilize harms, you generally want to be high and fast to allow the missile to have the highest chance of hitting the target. As the general rule of thumb, above 30,000 feet and going faster than Mach 1. All right, now let's talk about utilizing our harms. Over here, we can see it's an SA-11 and SA-15. Keep that in the back of your mind for the rest of this example. When utilizing the harm on the HAD page, I'll make it my sensor of interest and move my radar cursor controller around. You can see that moving. And any possible radar emitting potential threats are now shown on our HAD. Here we can see the RO, which are the Rolands, out to my right. About over there somewhere. If I wanted to target them, all I would do is put my cursor over the threat and press TMS forward. Now it is boxed in red, and it is now my target for my harm. On our HUD, it now shows a flashing box and a ranging cue on the side. ranging cue, flashing box. The flashing box means we can fire, and this is showing if we're potentially able to hit it. So if this little caret tick hits the bottom, we're no longer in range. If it's above the top, we are out of range. The sweet spot where you want to fire is somewhere in this center portion. So you can see I actually locked up this emitter pretty much off to my 3 o'clock. It's down here. So if I fired right now, the harm would come off the rail, snake around, and go hit that target. That's the beauty of utilizing the HAD and the harm targeting system. It is scanning all around you. It doesn't have to be a threat directly in front of you. To unlock the target, all I have to do is press TMS aft, and I get my cursor back and it's unlocked. We no longer have the flashing box, showing we don't have a lock to fire on. Alright, I can see the target is off to our left. I'll fly into it, and maybe we'll start picking it up. This white outline shows the detection range of our harm targeting system on the scale of the page all the way out. This here is 60 miles from us down here, same as on our HSD. So if I wanted to expand the range, I could utilize these arrows. And the higher we are, the more this range will expand. Before we get into a firing position, make sure your plane is armed. Going 36,000 feet, close to Mach 1. And let's hope I can find a SAM threat on the HAD. Alright, I can see the SD pop up. That is a detected threat on the EW. And now I have the search dishes down here. These are for the SA-11s. So if I wanted to fire a harm at them, all I would have to do is move my cursor over the target. It gives us some information about where it detects it and thinks it is up at the top. Press TMS forward. I now have a lock. And we have this cue, a line that we generally want to put our plane on to fire, our ranging cue, and the flashing box showing that we can fire. So all I need to do is press my weapon release button, and Magnum. Harm is away. The harm is going to loft itself and fly towards the target. At this point, it is no longer locked on our head, and I can go find another target and re-engage if I wished. That's all you need to do. Move your cursor over a detected target, TMS forward to lock it. You can see I can even lock it from all the way out here when it's over in that direction. And you even get a nice little targeting cue in your helmet about where the target is being locked. I'm not going to fire on that with the HAD, so I'm going to TMS aft to unlock it. And I'll move to the weapon page and demonstrate how to utilize the weapon page. Since we used the HAD, it changed the symbology on the weapon page. So to get out of this, press the pause button and then the has button. And now I'm back to the normal weapon page. Show that again. We can press this top left button. I have a few options. To utilize the weapon page, we want to use has. Now with this page, we are not utilizing our harm targeting system or all the advanced capabilities. They are harm hit. So in order to utilize this page, I'm going to make it my sensor of interest. And what this is displaying is a view out the seeker head of the harm. So in this case, the harm on pylon 4. Down here. And this is the seeker head view out of the missile coming out in a cone. So in order to fire on a target, the first thing we want to do is point the missile at the target. So we'll have it out in front of us somewhere. The next thing we need to be aware of are these designations along the left-hand side. these are the only targets our HARM is currently searching for. Right now, an SA-10, Big Bird, Clamshell, SA-11, and an SD search dish. In order to change what our HARM is looking for, we can press TMS left with our weapon page as soy, and you see that changes. Now we're looking for an SA-19, 15, 8, ADE. Can go TMS left again, and it's now looking for different kinds of SAMs. We'll go back TMS left. So I am on the SA-11 and the SD page because those are the targets I'm going to be focused on when I turn back in. I'll DMS right so I know where the SAM is. I'll turn back into it. If I was going for the SA-15 out there, I would know I need to TMS left and find the 15 on that page so it can actually find it. I'll go back to the 11. This is a bit more cumbersome, and I generally only use it as a last resort if I cannot find the target on the HAD page. Alright, it's somewhere out in front of us. I'll bring up the weapon page. And now you can see the SD right here. I'll move my cursor over it. The A stands for active. It is actively searching. Once my cursor is over it, I will press TMS forward. It is now locked. And just like before, I have the flashing box. That means that I can fire on it. If the box is not flashing, you should not fire. And you can see this target moves all around if I pitch up, pitch down, because it's a view from the outside of the missile seeker head. Alright, I have a lock. It's showing on the page, flashing box, weapon release button, and magnum. And the HARM will go curve off and lock up the target. Now let's say I didn't have time to cycle to a new page. I'm going to go back to my HAD, move the cursor over the SA-15, TMS up, lock it, weapon release button, magnum. So you can utilize both these pages in conjunction with each other. Just keep in mind if you want to utilize your weapon page, you're going to need to come back and put it into HAS to get the seeker head. There are a few more different ways to utilize these HARMs, but we'll cover them in a later video. This is what I find myself utilizing 99% of the time, and this will do you just fine for most things you're going to do when you're out flying and you're worrying about threats popping up around you. Alrighty, now let's talk about jettisoning stores. So we're in air-to-ground mode, and we still have a HARM left. My fuel tank is empty, which I can see by rotating my knob to external center. And if I hit the emergency jettison button, I would end up jettisoning my HARM as well as my fuel tank, and I don't want to do that. So in order to specifically jettison a certain pylon, I'm going to DMS right to the SMS page. When the SMS page is up, we see a new option on the far right called SJ, Station Jettison. I will click that button. Here we now have a list of all of the different stores on our airplane. In the center, I have my 300-pound fuel tank that I wish to jettison, and my HARM on this outer left pylon. In order to jettison this fuel tank specifically, I will click the button pertaining to that pylon. In this case, the top middle, and now it is highlighted. If I wanted to jettison this left pylon, I would click this button. It is now highlighted. If I wanted to jettison this right one, that is now highlighted. This out pylon, this button, and so on. You can see if we double click the button, it first cycles between the munition and the launcher, or back off. Here, I no longer have the munitions on the pylons, so it only selects the launcher. I'll go ahead and select these three with no munitions, so I can jettison the actual pylon holder. for the munition. Once I have my desired pylons selected, all I need to do is press the weapons release button as long as my plane is armed. All right, I'm going to weapon release. And now all of the stores on these pylons that I selected were jettisoned. To get out of the jettison page, I will click Stores Jettison SJ one more time, and now I'm back into my air-to-ground mode. This Stores Jettison page will override your current mode. You can utilize it in either air-to-ground or nav. So you can see I'm in the air-to-ground HARM mode. If I click Stores Jettison, I am now in the jet mode. So if I cycle to dogfight, missile mode, and back, it's now in jettison. If I deselect Stores Jettison, I'm back in my air-to-ground. So if I cycle through, it puts me back in my air-to-ground mode. All right, that covers all of the basics. Since I have one more HARM left, and I've finished demonstrating jettisoning, I'll turn back in and I'll fire my HARM again at a target. I'll make my HAD my sensor of interest. Bring my HSD up on the right so I know where the threat is. And we can see it remembers where some targets were out here, which corresponds to what we see on the HSD. So all I'm going to do is point my plane, put the targets inside the white outlined circle, cursor over it, they turned yellow so I can lock them, and I will press TMS up forward. It is locked, and I can see where it is out to my left. I'm going to go ahead and turn into it because I'm showing out of range. Remember, our range cue is this caret, and we do not have the flashing box. It ended up dropping off of our detection, so I'll relock it. Alrighty, I have the flashing cue, the arrow, and now in a more advanced method, rather than just firing it, we can utilize this cross on the vertical line. We can pitch our velocity vector up to this top cross to loft the missile with our aircraft rather than making the missile waste energy to loft itself. You won't hit the top cross, but you can just pitch up and you see how the missile came off our rail up by itself rather than coming straight off and going up. You can do generally about 15-20 degree pitch like that, and that'll help the missile conserve energy. A nice thing about utilizing this HAD is you can generally lock things much farther away than you could with, say, HARMS on the 18, because it has its own dedicated pod rather than relying on the seeker head. You'll notice it's going to be harder to lock things on the seeker head than on the HAD. So generally use the HAD. If it's failing you, then resort to the seeker head. You see this because you utilize the HAD. Pause, has, and you're back to the seeker head. Once again, there are a lot more in-depth and complicated, complex uses, but this is all you'll need 99% of the time. We'll cover more in a later video. Thanks for watching.